Which is why worship also creates a beautiful environment for healing, because when you're worshiping, your focus and attention should be, if it's true worship, should be all on Him, right? And focused on Him. And so because it's there, then, you're able to receive and you put yourself aside, and He's able to do what He couldn't otherwise do inside of you. Hey there. Welcome to Open Waters Worship Podcast. We're so excited to have you join us again this week.
Yep.
How have your last 2 weeks been, Josiah?
Been excellent.
Yeah?
Excellent. Been grinding. Been finally able to settle into my place. And it's been fantastic.
Good. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully I'll get to stay here for more than a couple weeks. So, other than that, I'm looking forward to it.
I know. Every time you get back in your place, something happens.
Somebody gotta stay. Someone's gotta have a dog to watch.
I know.
Something, bro. Every time. That's all right. That's okay.
Well, before you know it, you'll be staying there forever, and you'll be like, I want to go get out of here for a little bit. So my 2 weeks have been good. I've just been really focusing on getting healthy, trying to fast, get into the presence of the Lord, kind of make some decisions for what the Lord wants me to focus in and hone in on. So that's kind of been my last 2 weeks. Hopefully everybody else, you've been having a good 2 weeks since the last time we aired our podcast. And just a quick reminder, again, we have Open Waters Worship this Saturday at 6 p.m. And we would love to come have you join us. And of course, as always, you're able to invite friends if you need the address or more information. You can follow us on Instagram. You can email us at openwaterworship@gmail.com. We're also on Facebook. Just let us know if you have any questions or comments. You can also, comment here. And I think we're live streaming too. So if you can't make it in person, we'd love for you to at least join us online, YouTube. We have Open Waters Worship. So Josiah, we're going to dive right into our topic this week.
Okay.
God
Let's get it.
heals and deals in worship. So kind of the idea this week is just talking about how when we are in worship, it's such a beautiful opportunity for God to heal us and to deal with us and to deal with some of the things in our lives that it just doesn't get dealt with, because oftentimes we're not in a space to let Him deal with it. And so I think this kind of comes on the heels of, we had another really good worship service recently, and the Lord just really moved. And our pastor, Jeremy, had just talked about how God is this surgeon, and oftentimes we are like, hey, it's like we're on the table. And in worship, I feel like so many times we are on the operating room table, and God does surgery on us. And oftentimes we're like, hey, you need to deal with this right here. We're picking up the scalpel. You need to cut here. And the pastor talked about how, no, God's saying, no, I need to deal with this over here. So we're just talking about how worship is a beautiful opportunity to give God this space to heal us, to deal with us, to do surgery on us. And also that surgery doesn't often look like what we think it's going to look like.
Yep.
So sometimes He's dealing with things that we didn't even know are there. What do you think about that, Josiah?
I was there for that service. And so I thought that was really good. And, even that same Sunday, there was somebody there that I was like, little bit of a little shocker there. And I usually don't get tied up with focusing on people and stuff during worship, but it's really hard with this person there. And so having him there, I was like, all right, God, I want to focus on you, and I don't want to, I'm just going to ignore that this person's here,
Yeah.
And it was just okay. And so I go ahead, worship, and I'm like, all right, I'm worshiping you, God. Where you at?
Yeah.
What do you want to show me today? Do you want to reveal something to me? He's like, nah, we need to do something for this dude. And we just need to, pass him being this person that whatever, this person is,
Sure.
And so there's something Pastor said, and it was later in the service when he was preaching, and he said, just because someone did something just means that they weren't operating to who God made them to be. And I was like, all
their
right.
destiny.
That
was so
and I was
powerful.
like, that's true, and Lord, so I just want to like release this person to you, and just give him to you. And so, yeah. And that all happened like mostly during worship, and then it kind of wrapped itself up during the sermon when Pastor said that. And so I was like, okay.
Yeah, it was really cool. I am thinking about how much I should share, but I had a similar experience, and it took me almost all of worship to deal with it, which one was God dealing with me, and then healing me and it wasn't like I thought it would be, because first of all, I didn't know this was going to bother me that much, but it took me literally, we had worship for an hour and a half, maybe an hour and 15. And it took me probably, and it wasn't until the last 15 minutes, where I was able to finally get to a place where I was like, okay, God. But the Lord just showed me this vision of him, his eyes looking at me and blazing in fire. And I saw him just cover me. And he's like, will you just trust me that I will take care of this? And I'm like, no, I don't trust you.
No.
And so it's like, I didn't know that was there. I didn't know. And so then I'm thinking in my head, like that person on the table in worship, I'm like, no, you need to, okay, I don't trust you. Here's where you go for that. This is where it is. But I just sat there and was just processing and allowing the Holy Spirit to speak to me and to, do his work. But I was just like, I wanted to take that scalpel and say, no, here. But I saw him do that. And then he said, I will not let this happen again. And I said, Lord, what is it? What is it? And I had no idea. This was so enlightening to me. But he said, you are partnering with the spirit of hypocrisy, because I hate the spirit of hypocrisy. And I've been so hurt by the spirit of hypocrisy. And then the Lord started to go through all of my life since I was a child, different things. And throughout marriages, throughout situations with pastors and other leaders and different things like that, I have seen that and I abhor it. Like, it is the one thing that I can have empathy and compassion and forgive almost anything, because I can see wounded people, hurt people and stuff like that. And I have a high level of compassion and empathy for people. But when it comes to somebody who's religious and hypocritical, it's like, that's the hardest for me to forgive. And I have to literally say, okay, it's because of the cross. Because I can't drum up the sympathy for this. And so I just was like, well, the Lord showed me. I wasn't expecting that. You are partnering with a spirit of hypocrisy. I'm like, what? So I let him show me that. And that scalpel cut in a different area. And I said, Lord, I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. Because that woundedness was allowing me to just sync up with that spirit and to focus on that spirit and to partner in a weird way of wounding with that spirit. And so I just forgave. I just did a blanket, Lord, I just forgive. And I felt release. And I know something altered in me that day. And it happened because of worship. It happened as I got into worship, God started to brush me off. And as I started to focus on him, I started to slowly, I was scared, but he in that worship, he drew me in and he healed me and freed me and did surgery on me in an area that I wasn't expecting. But this is what he does. It's so crazy because we serve this God who doesn't just want our worship because he's God and I must be worshiped. Mm-hmm. It's because he knows when we come into his presence, we have all that we need, all that we long for, all that we were designed for. We have connection, we have healing, we have freedom, we have deliverance, we have joy, we have righteousness, peace. We have fruit of the Spirit, love, joy, peace, patience, goodness, faithfulness, meekness, kindness, self-control. I mean, it's like glory. It's everything we could want. And there's healing that takes place. So this King who we worship, he doesn't make it about him. He actually does things in us. It's unfathomable. It's incredible.
Yeah.
What do you think?
No, that's all I can say is, yeah, he does do something, like, especially during worship, I think he reveals stuff. because we're forced to, I think when you get past your mind, when you start singing a song, he kind of just bypasses your mind because you're singing the song, thinking about the words, and it gives him a chance to come and touch these places that, you know, that he's wanting to. But I think a lot of the time he's met with resilience from us as people, and we're like, no, we know what's best for us. We know what's hurt. And he's like, no, I know what's hurt. So, and he tries to go straight to the issue while we're over here trying to get rid of the symptoms.
Yeah.
And so maybe if we just, I think a lot of us, if we just let him deal with the actual issue instead of us telling him to deal with the symptoms first, we'd have much better lives. But unfortunately, we think we know what's best.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we tend to we tend to tell God what we think is best and tell him what to do. Which
is why worship also creates a beautiful environment for healing, because when you're worshiping, your focus and attention should be, if it's true worship, should be all on him, right? And focused on him. And so because it's there, then, you know, you're able to receive and you put yourself aside, and he's able to do what he couldn't otherwise do inside of you. And that's on top of what we talked about, again, even in the last podcast. There is something artistic about it. Something about when you're singing and you're in that place too, where God can bypass the normal thought processes if you allow yourself to get there, you know?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
There will be a Q&A thing after the podcast. If you want to fill out kind of what God's healing you mostly recently.
What are some areas in which in worship God has done some
healing,
inner healing and deep healing and dealing with you?
Yeah. I think a lot of the time I'm just going to kind of go into the need of how needed inner healing is. And I just want to start off by saying, you know, inner healing is very important. I think we kind of short circuit ourselves and say we don't need to heal anything. We're kind of we're cyborgs, and so we kind of, you know, just
we're new creations. All things have passed away. All things are made new. Yes, that's true. However, if you don't allow God to, like, you are still. Oftentimes we are still operating as if we're not that new creation. We're not new. So we have to literally be shown by him, here's how you put these new clothes on. Here's how you operate in your newness. Yeah. And sometimes that takes looking back to let it freely go. Yeah. It's already gone, but it's like looking back and allowing God to apply the newness where you can see it so that you're no longer acting like you're still that old creature.
It's like our life being built on sand as it is before we meet Jesus, you know, and having a demolition crew and knock everything over and we just leave it there. So if you don't deal with that inner help and that inner healing, it's like keeping that debris there and trying to still build something, this new on the rock, this new house. And it's like, you've still got this stuff to deal with. You still got this old house here, demolitioned and broken.
You still had real experiences that impacted you.
Yeah.
And even though you're no longer, like, God has covered all that, you still have had that experience, and your body knows, and your mind knows, your subconscious knows, your spirit 100% knew, but your mind and your body have stored that old in there.
Hey there, sorry for the interruption. Just wanted to say, if you haven't already, rate and review this podcast. It would mean the absolute world to us if you could rate and review and share this with somebody you know. That way we can get the word out and we can help other people dive deeper into God's open waters. Now let's get back to the podcast.
I think there's a lot of the time also when you're singing a song, you get to, like I said, you short circuit your mind because you can't focus on anything because you're singing and you're trying to make sure you sound good for the people around you. And you kind of catch a phrase that you may not have thought of in a while, and maybe it's a song. I'll just give an example, like ABBA. There's a lot of
people. This sounds like a personal experience, Josiah.
No, yeah, this has happened to me. Not for this song, but like I think this one happens to a lot of people I've heard, at least, is the song ABBA, and a lot of people like have had problems with fathers in their life, and then when they sing this song ABBA, it may be like the 7th, 8th, 9th, 20th, 100th time they sang this song, but this one time they finally have reached this point where God's just opened their heart and able to heal them, and it's like, oh, I'm your Abba, I'm your Father, and I'm here for you, and I've been here with you through everything that you've gone through. Your earthly father's been crap,
and I'm not like your earthly father, even though you think I am, because that's the only father you've known.
Yeah. And so I think like that's happened to me, but not necessarily for that song, but it's just like there's been those times where it's just been that song has rubbed me in a way that's never happened before. It's just like God's finally gotten to this place where I'm just able to be healed in this spot.
Yeah, so. That's so good.
Yep.
I have so many stories about how songs have brought, and just worship, the Lord just brought so much healing to me. It's over and over and over and over and over again. The Lord has done so much in me through worship.
I think not only like spiritually or inner healing, I think also just mentally. There's been studies that have been done for music and worship music too, and just how rhythm and music and tunes just actually help heal the mind physically. Like there's people that are really old and they might be...
They have dementia or Alzheimer's.
It's just like as soon as they hear a certain song, that brings them back to that old state of mind. Or there's autistic people that will... When they're playing that music or they hear that music, they'll just kind of be, I don't know, not regulated, but like they'll be normal or quote unquote normal. You know what I'm saying? And so it's like healing. There's healing in sound and healing in music, and and it's because it all is inspired by the voice of God and the rhythms that God has created and inspired people by. And so
pretty interesting too is there's some stuff out there that talks about frequencies. And I know some people can go to extremes with these, but there's even frequency machines that can bring healing. Like literally that sound actually can, if you're feeling like you're getting a cold, it sounds crazy, but you play this frequency and it will help you fight the cold. There's other frequencies, like you've heard of David playing the harp for Saul. They've been able to figure out the frequency at which his harp was playing, and there are some songs out there that play in that frequency, and it's this calming frequency. It sounds kind of crazy, but
that's wild.
I mean, New Age people, right? We've said this before. They're not coming up with something new because there's nothing new under the sun. That's what the Bible says. They're just taking a beautiful thing that is that the Lord has created, and they're twisting it and attaching it to a false spirit, to the enemy, right? So I wouldn't participate in any of the New Age kind of like sound
therapy,
healing or things like that. But if it's just sound healing, like there are frequencies that release healing, they just do. There's called bilateral stimulation music, which I was thinking about you when I was listening to it, because some of it's really that pretty sound, and some of it's like that. And I was thinking about when you play drums, you do a lot of bilateral stimulation, because you're not only hearing the one side of the brain that's the real flowy side, you're getting the practical timing side where you have to stay on beat. And so as a drummer, you really have to, there's a lot of that comes into play. And so, but even that affects, that connects the brain. It helps connect your brain. I mean, and each of us releases a sound, a frequency too. So there's healing that comes through us. And a sound that comes through each of us that is so unique, like a fingerprint, like nothing else. And it's healing. And the frequency and even the beats per minute in worship, the average beats per minute in worship are proven to be the beats per minute that the heart rate should be at. So it helps people be calmer and more relaxed. Isn't that cool?
That's
so
super
cool.
We learned so we went to this worshiping musician summit a while back, and there's this one lady, again, I forget her name and I apologize, but she's very, very anointed, and she's talked on how there's different sounds in the Bible.
Yeah, Hibbard was her name.
Yes, Miss Hibbard. And there was a sound, she said, oh yeah, if you read the Bible, you'll discover that there's sounds that can arise in worship, like the sound of water. What does water sound like?
That's true. I remember that. That was amazing.
What does the footsteps of God sound like? And it's like, okay, but there's also healing. And so what does healing sound like? And so there is a specific sound of what healing sounds like, and it's out there for us to explore. And it's different for everybody. Some tune might have, I don't know, I don't want to say healing effect, because there is healing in sound, and we're here to explore that. And
yeah, it's so beautiful. It's so amazing.
But
again, we talked about the mysteries of God the last podcast, and it's just mind-blowing, mind-boggling, crazy. Josiah, have you had an experience in worship? I know you talked about one briefly, but do you have one that marks your mind of how God really healed you? Not in a worship experience.
Not necessarily, but there was, this is kind of a wild story, but there was a while ago where Rand Hershey, he gave me, like, this is kind of different, but it is healing related to worship. And he told me that, he kind of like, I don't know, like, prophetic message told me that, hey, your hand condition, like, I had extreme eczema a while back. He said, hey, it was at youth camp. And he was like, your eczema is connected to your skill in your drum playing.
Wow.
And so he told me that, and I was like, okay. Yeah, I don't tell people.
Okay.
And so and so he said, sorry, there's a fly flying around my head. That's why I went silent for a second. But he told me that my drum skill playing was a relation to my hand condition, or my eczema. And so I'm now here years later, my drum skill has gotten much better, and I think I'm not bad. And it's my hand eczema is completely gone. And so it might be.
Praise God. It's not your eczema.
The eczema.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, there has been a healing in worship for that. And it's just my skill apparently was connected to the eczema that was inflicting my hands. And so
it's huge.
Yeah. I don't know.
Super huge.
Sorry, that's kind of different than what you were asking, but it's kind of similar.
No. That's a healing experience that happened in worship. Yeah. And I talked about a big way that God dealt with me, when we started off. I gave that story. What other things were you thinking of in regards to this topic?
I think we've talked about pretty much everything I had to cover.
Yeah.
Okay. I think this is mainly your topic, and so I wanted to...
My topic.
I was yielding to you.
No, I just think... I think worship is an incredible invitation. We talk about open waters, and I think worship is such an opportunity for us, an invitation for us to wade into the healing springs of the Lord every single time. And I think it's also an opportunity. Out of our bellies will flow rivers of living water, where we can release the sound of heaven and release healing through worship. I even think of it's called Roto Worship or something on Instagram, and they go on the streets and they sing worship over people and randomly, and people will just start weeping. There's something so special about being in worship. And I just want to pray. I think we'll just end. It's probably going to be a shorter podcast, but let's just end with prayer. So God, I just want to pray for every person. First, I want to start with those that are, just as we experience worship, that we allow ourselves to be more open to being healed and to being dealt with as we're in worship. We go into it to honor you and to glorify you, knowing that because of who you are, you in your great love take the opportunity to shine us up and to bring us into connection and to clean off the things that are keeping us from the connection we need and the connection we desire and the connection that will bring healing and to heal us and to deal with us. And so I just ask, Father, you, the good Father, who's not like our earthly Father, you are perfect and you only know how to give good gifts, that we would look at worship as an opportunity to be healed, and that we would surrender and really kind of put some focus into allowing you to be the surgeon that you want to be while we are in worship, to allow you to reveal things to us that are hindering us, that are keeping us bound, that are keeping us broken. Lord, I just thank you that we will be able to focus on that. And God, I just pray for every person who has severe wounds, God, or light wounds, God, or disassociating or is coping with wounds from the past that don't have to be dealt with, don't have to be a torment, that they would just take the opportunity either by themselves or to go to church or to get themselves in a worship environment and just to, broken as they are, allow you to just have your way and to bring healing and dealing. And God, I just pray for the worship leaders that are out there, God. Lord, that we would understand the weight of the glory of not only being in your presence, but ourselves being healed in worship and then allowing your living water to flow through us as worshipers to all those around us. And Lord, even if we're not singers, even if we're not leaders, we are worshiping you everywhere that we go with our life, or we have the opportunity to. And I just pray that we would be surrendered to you, to be healed and to bring healing and allow your healing to flow through us to each person we encounter, God. We thank you that you're an amazing God who invites us into this place of worship, not because you have some kind of insecurity issue and you have to have attention on you, but because you're inviting us into this place that we were created for. You're inviting us into heaven on earth. You're inviting us to be in the eternal places while we're still in a temporary realm. And you're inviting us into places of healing and health and wholeness that can be lasting. And we just thank you, God. In Jesus' name.
Amen.
Amen.
We'll see you guys in the next 2 weeks.
Okay, bye.